Birds, who he was only partially speaking to in that chamber tonight, is an independent senator from Maine, Senator Angus King, who joins us now live. Senator, it's great to have you here tonight. Thanks very much for your time.
Thank you. Nice to be here, Rachel.
When the president talked about how uncomfortable members of Congress are with the rancor and the noise coming from their own base, and how partisanship, blind partisanship in some cases, has made being a member of Congress not all that much fun anymore, do you feel like you are exempt from that diagnosis because you are an independent, or did what the president say speak to you too?
Well, it certainly speaks to the institution, and I think there's a great contradiction that the general public doesn't understand. They think we all hate each other, that there's this constant friction and confrontation, and it's all unpleasant and toxic. I hear that word used. The truth is, this place is institutionally confrontational and difficult to get things done, but personally, it's not that way. And I think he really hit on an important point, that a lot of people here do feel sort of trapped in a system. I think one of the best lines I heard was from a Republican House member a couple of weeks ago. He said, "I spend all my time in Washington trying to convince people I'm not crazy, and all my time in my district trying to convince my constituents I am crazy." You know, there's this real pressure to toe the line, and of course one of the litmus tests now is how you feel about this president. I thought this was an extraordinary speech. I frankly think this was his best speech since the night of the election in Grant Park 8 years ago.
Wow. Senator, when President Obama tonight turned around at one point and talked about Paul Ryan's interest in fighting poverty. Speaker Ryan, of course, had brought a number of guests who he announced their names, announced their stories ahead of tonight's speech, all focused on the issue of combating poverty, most of them from his home district. We also had this shot tonight that a lot of us at home were watching for a lot of the wind-up to the speech tonight, which was Vice President Biden and Speaker Ryan speaking very intensely and apparently a very friendly way for a very long time tonight in the context of this speech. I wonder if the era of Speaker Ryan, young as it is, feels any more constructive, feels like it might be an environment in which stuff can get done when the two parties don't disagree too drastically.
Well, I have to tell you that what happened at the end of the year with the budget and the final negotiations was really remarkable and surprising. I wouldn't have given you 50-50 that it was going to come out that way 2 or 3 weeks before. So I think he has to take, Speaker Ryan has to take some credit there. One of the things that the president touched upon, and I think is really critical, and that is the idea that compromise itself, that talking to each other, listening to each other, is itself a political offense. It's one thing to vote somebody out of office if you disagree with them on abortion or on the war or whatever. But if you vote somebody out of office because they manifest a willingness to listen and try to solve problems, then we're in real trouble. Do you see what I mean? It makes it impossible, because people say, well, I agree with you on this. We ought to be able to work this out. But if I'm seen working with you and compromising, that is a capital crime in my district. We've got to get beyond that. Otherwise, I've never seen anything like that. So I have no problem with differing on issues. But if we differ on the fundamental process of working together and compromising and trying to find solutions to problems, man, we're in real trouble. And I think that was one of the things he was trying to address tonight.
You know, Senator King, let's talk something real in particular here. You know, every country needs to have an immigration policy because of our history. It's very progressive. It's very liberal. We try to let as many people as we can bring into the country. And we had an immigration bill passed in the last Congress. It got through the Senate with 12 Republicans, as well as the Democratic majority. It was a good bill. It had its tough teeth in it. It really talked about stopping people from hiring people illegally. But it was also a way for people who have been here for a number of years, say 20 years, to find their way to citizenship. It was a good, comprehensive bill. Right. The Republican leadership of the House wouldn't let it come to a vote. Not even to a vote, okay? It's supposed to be a democracy, a Republican form of government. How about using the word Republican for once in a real sense? Let the representatives vote on an issue important to the people. Then, here's what happened. This is how it breaks down. The president, enraged by the failure of the Congress to do anything, took a number of steps by executive order. That enraged the Republicans still further. In comes a new speaker. Paul Ryan says, I'm not going to do anything on immigration reform as long as this guy is president of the United States. And people ask, how does it start? It's this cycle of stupidity and anger that goes step by step. So now we're not going to have any immigration process done this year. Nothing's going to get done. People are surging across the border again. It's happening again. And conservatives say they're doing something to stop illegal immigration. They're not doing anything to stop illegal immigration because we don't have a law we're willing to enforce because they won't let it come to a vote. Your thoughts?
But Chris, you left out one important part of that line of history about the passage of the bill, the president acting. A key event during that period was the defeat of Eric Cantor in the Republican primary in Virginia. Now, I've heard all kinds of explanations about why that happened. Some people said he didn't go home often enough. He didn't pay attention to his district. But the perception here was that he lost that election in a Republican primary because he was deemed too soft, if you will, on immigration. Now, I don't know what he said or did to make people think that, but that sort of cast a pall over this whole discussion. And, of course, this presidential election we've been in now, immigration is one of the real hot-button issues. So it's clearly something that we have to deal with. And it always bothered me that people use the word amnesty. If you get caught with an OUI and you lose your license for 6 months and you pay your fine and you spend a weekend in jail or whatever the penalty is and you get your license back, nobody says that's amnesty. That's just what happens after you've paid your debt to society. The same thing in the immigration bill. You had to go through a long process, 9 years. You had to pay a fine. You had to have a clean record, all of those kinds of things. And yet people call it amnesty. And that word just sort of took over the political discussion. So clearly it's something we have to do. I mean, this country, I made a speech on the floor and said, I find it kind of ridiculous. I'm speaking to an entire chamber full of people, all of whom are descendants of immigrants, talking about whether or not we should have immigration. That's who this country is. And frankly, you know, you can go down Steve Jobs' father and Madeleine Albright and Henry Kissinger, and, you know, the list just goes on and on of the way these folks from around the world, including my ancestors and yours, came here to find a better life. So to cut that off is not only wrong in terms of what is America, but it's really stupid in terms of the economy. We need people in order to build our economy, and so we've got to work this problem out.
Senator, I grew up in a family with the Irish accent spoken at home on the grandparents' side. We're only a few votes ahead of some of these people. Thank you very much, Senator Angus King of Maine.